in our if-else statements, we've been using code blocks. And I really haven't introduced the concept of code blocks yet, so I wanted to introduce it now. Code blocks are any set of statements that are inside two curly braces. So here's an example. We have an opening curly brace, some code. We're just setting some variables to some value. We're adding them up and getting a sum. There's nothing special about the code inside the block. It's just that it is within the curly braces, making it a unit of a code block. So far, we've included those curly braces in all our if statements. It's highly recommended that you continue to always use these curly braces for the if statements for the rest of your programming career. So here's an example where we set the grade to 76. We check if the grade is greater than, and then inside a code block, we've started the curly brace and ended the curly brace. We are alerting, congratulations, you passed. If it's not true, then we're opening up another code block with the curly brace and saying, please seek assistance from your professor. Although they're recommended, they're not always required. Sometimes they are required, and we're going to talk about that. But in this particular case, we don't need those curly braces. If we have an if statement and skip the opening curly brace and skip the closing curly brace, it's going to alert, congratulations, you passed, if it is greater than 70, and in this case 76 is greater than 70, so that's what it will alert. And it will not alert the please seek assistance because it's going to skip over the else condition. Let's look at why the curly braces are always recommended. So here's an example where we're calculating the tax rate, and it's a function, and we're passing in 10 and Minnesota. So if the state is Wisconsin, use the Wisconsin tax rate. Otherwise, we're going to use the Minnesota tax rate. And maybe I want to add a debug statement here. I just want to make sure that the tax rate that we're setting, that this Wisconsin tax rate is the tax rate that I expect. So if I go ahead and add that alert in there, we go from a working program to a program that's stopped running. Let's take a look at that. So here's our program. If we open it up on the desktop, here we say my shake costs $10.55, and our program is running fine. But I want to add that debug statement in here. So I'm going to add an alert here that's going to alert my tax rate. And I'm not changing anything else. I'm just adding that alert. And now I've broken my code. And it looks like my alert is just fine, but it stopped working. Well, what's going on is that because we don't have the curly braces here, the if is going to only allow one statement. Right now we have two statements. We have one that sets the tax rate and one that does the alert. And so we need the curly braces to say this is one code block. Go from the start of the curly brace to the end of the curly brace. So now if we run it, it's going to allow the program to work. Now we didn't get the tax rate to pop up because we were using Minnesota. So let's switch to Wisconsin. And now you can see that debug alert is showing up, and we're getting a shake cost with the new tax rate on it. So just by adding a line of code, we broke what we were doing. So if you always use these curly braces, then you never have to worry about it. It's always just a code block. Now what happens on the else side? Let's say I want to debug the else statement, and I'm going to put my alert down here and do the alert for the tax rate here. And so, you know, that's part of my else statement. If it's Minnesota, then just I want to double check that it's giving the right tax rate. So yeah, let's alert the Minnesota tax rate there, and then go ahead and use that tax rate. So I'll change this back to Minnesota. Go ahead and save it. And it's giving me the 0.055 for the Minnesota tax rate. So I am going to use the Minnesota tax rate. And it says my shake costs $10.55. So I think my program's working. You know, it's $10, so 0.055 should be an extra 55 cents. That all looks good. But let's go back to Wisconsin. Now we're going to run the program again, and it says my shake costs $10.55 still, and yet my Wisconsin tax rate is supposed to be 0.065. Well, let's put that debug statement back in there. We're going to alert that tax rate and make sure it's really setting it to 0.065. Okay, it really is setting it to 0.065, but still it's saying my shake costs $10.55. Well, what's happening is that because we don't have curly braces, it's only taking the first statement as part of the else, and no matter what, it's going to set the tax rate to the Minnesota tax rate. It's always going to execute that line of code on 16, no matter what the condition is, because it doesn't consider that line of code part of the else block. So in order to make it part of the block and not just a single statement, we need to put those curly braces in. Now when we run it, now we're getting back to the right answer. So there are different problems when you add extra statements. If you add extra statements in the if condition, then it stops working because it doesn't understand why you have an else without a matching if. And if you put extra statements in the else clause, well, it just doesn't even treat them as part of the else clause. It only takes the first statement as part of the else. So without those curly braces, the if condition expects a single statement, and when there are two statements, it treats that second statement as if it's outside the if condition. So if this is no longer part of the if condition, then it's confused to see the else following it because it thinks you are done with the if statement and that you chose to do just an if and not an else. And here's the other example where we add an extra statement to the else clause, and yet we don't have the curly braces. The else expects just a single statement, and so it treats the alert of the tax rate as the else, and then it executes the one following regardless of whether the condition was true or false, because it treats that as just simply the next line of code. And we can fix that problem and get rid of potentially confusing errors that we need to debug by simply putting those curly braces in every time.